This is the Fujifilm Tiara zoom, a point-and-shoot film camera which Fujifilm released in the mid-1990s. I am going to be traveling from Seattle, Washington to Phoenix, Arizona to answer one simple question. Why does no one remember this camera? The Fujifilm Tiara zoom released sometime in 1996. This was a very transitional period for cameras because film was steadily approaching the digital revolution. Now at the same time that digital was starting to take hold, film was also going through its own revolution at the time with small, compact cameras. Within just a 5-year period, almost every notable compact camera release that we still think about today. Think about the Contax T2, the Ricoh R1 and GR1, the Olympus Mu, and the original Fujifilm Tiara camera, the Tiara TC1, an all-titanium 35mm film camera, which at the time was the smallest film camera, or at least the smallest 35mm film camera ever made. The thing that really made me interested in the Tiara to begin with is because not as many people know about it, it is significantly cheaper than something like the Ricoh R1, and it actually works. In the mid-90s, camera manufacturers were throwing all of the technology that they could at the time into these cameras. From autofocus to automatic film winders to LCD screens, and the list goes on. The days of completely manual cameras were in the past. But the problem is that a lot of this new technology that they were putting in these cameras weren't really built to last. Nowadays, if you want to buy one of these cameras that actually fully work, you're going to pay a hefty premium. For instance, to buy a mint condition GR1, it costs about $600. To buy a mint condition Fujifilm Tiara, however, it costs about $200. That doesn't mean that by any means that Fujifilm figured something out that these other camera manufacturers didn't. The LCD screen on this camera is still most likely going to fail one day, but at least for the time being, you can find it for a third of the price as some of these other competitors. Besides the price and the fact that these cameras still actually work, I think that there are a few things that set this camera apart. The first is how you load film. I've never seen another camera that loads film this way, and Fujifilm called it DL or drop-in loading film. Apparently Fujifilm made it this way to make it as small as physically possible. Something else that's great about this camera is that when you first put in the film, it unspools the entire roll, and then as you shoot, it goes back into the film canister, meaning that if something would happen and you would expose your film, all of the photos that you already took are safe. This is also a feature of a lot of other popular film cameras, which again are much more expensive. In addition to it being small and pocketable, it also is very versatile with a 28 to 56mm equivalent lens. Although that lens is very dark, being f4.5 to f7.5. So if you're going to be shooting at night or indoors, you're probably going to want to use this camera's inbuilt flash more than not. In addition to that, it also has a self-timer, manual focus, and exposure compensation if that's something you'd want.
Side by side we sway there in all the colors.
The build quality on this camera I would liken to something like the Fujifilm XE or XA series. Every source that I've seen online claims that this camera is made out of aluminum, but I just don't think that's true. It feels like a very high quality plastic and even a faux metal, similar to the XA line. Beyond the physical materials of this camera, it feels very good to use. The clamshell mechanism to hide the lens is fairly stiff so it doesn't accidentally open, and once you do open it, it doesn't accidentally close either. One quirk of it, I will say, is that when you turn on the camera, every single time the flash will be on, and that has caused some awkward moments. So ultimately, why haven't you heard of this camera? One of the reasons is because this camera was widely released in Japan and had a very limited run in Europe. However, it was not released whatsoever in North America. Meaning if you live in Canada, the United States, or Mexico, this camera just isn't around to remember. Should you buy one of these cameras now? I think that widely, yes, you should. If you're in the market for a point-and-shoot film camera, it's fantastic. However, there are two situations that I think you should avoid this camera. The first is the dark lens. There's no getting around it. f7.5 at 56mm is very dark. And if you're going to be doing a lot of indoor shooting, that might be a deal breaker for you. The other reason is the technology. Like I mentioned before, this camera will eventually break. I don't think there's much getting around that. It seems to have held up better than its counterparts, but hey, the LCD on this screen only goes up to 2026 anyway. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless.